Hello aspirants, welcome to GS Score. I am Ashutosh and today we are going to take another round of session for current affairs through MCQ for art and culture. Friends, as you know, we are conducting an all India mock test and the next date of mock test is on 10th of the May. Do come and attend and you can register it from the scanning the QR code. Visit the site isco.in. So let's take our first question. Friends, as you know, the first question is about some inscriptions known as Uthiramerur inscriptions, and it provides information about. So, aspirants, you know, the few months back, Prime Minister in his speech has said that we should take inspiration from the Chola self-government and the style of self-governance of Cholas, and in this regard, the Uthiramerur inscriptions is very important. Why it's very important? Because from this inscription, we get to know about the rural self-government, their machinery and administrative system, and the people and committees involved in the local self-government. Fine. And this Uthiramerur is from the Chola period, and it says about the historical description of rural self-government, and this will be our answer. Why this was very important to know? Because in Uthiramerur, it provides us information about Sabha or Mahasabha and one more Ur. This Sabha was the Sabha of elders, you can say, and it contains mainly Brahmanas who own land. Fine. So land owning Brahmanas were invited in the Sabha, and these land were also free from any taxes. Fine. So this kind of information is very necessary to understand the historical descriptions which have been found in Uthiramerur. Fine. So the next information we can have is about the Ur. Ur was made up of people belonging to all class. It can be said as an inclusive, that it contains the people. It have the people who belong to the all classes, and Sabha was mainly consist of the Brahmanas. Fine. Now, with regard to their functions, they were made to manage the land, its sales. Fine. Endowment funds for dredging of the tanks, their maintenance, and they also assigned some duties to the Urs to manage the desert land or the deserted lands. These duties were assigned to the Ur by Sabha. And with regard to one more information we have about the Varyams. Now, these Varyams were the executive committee. Fine. Uthiramerur inscription provide about information about the Varyams. They were the executive committees, and in Varyams we have an officers called Varyars. Varyars were the officers who were the subordinate to Sabha, and they performed the duties assigned by Sabha, and they were under the committees called Varyams. Fine. And this can be attributed during the reign of Chola king Prantaka. Prantaka I was the Chola king during 907 to 955 AD. So during these times, this Uthiramerur inscription mentions that there was Varyams and warrior officers subordinate to Sabha. Fine. So we have this information, and the next one I would like to show this is the Uthiramerur inscription which has been found, and which shows about the rural self-government and historical descriptions of the local self-governance. Fine, let's move on to the next question. The next question is about which of the following is incorrect with regard to Jainism. Now, Jainism, as you know, do form an important part, and we have to consider the statements which are incorrect. So let's look at the first statement. Symbol of lion was associated with the Mahavira. Jainism believe in God as a perfect being and not a creator. Remember, we have to identify the incorrect one. Jainism does not condemn the Varna system, while Buddhism does. Now, there is a comparative analysis based on the UPSC pattern. Now, according to Swetambara's, women cannot attain salvation. Friends, as you know, the first statement is correct. Why? Because with every Jain Tirthankaras, there was some symbols associated with that. Fine. So with regard to Mahavir, the symbol of lion was associated. You can see in the picture also is Vardhaman Mahavir, and the lion was depicted along with him. Fine. Similarly, there are many Granthakaras who have different animals or symbols being associated with them. The next is Jainism believe in God as a perfect being, not a creator. It's also a very correct statement. Why? That Jainism believe that universe is eternal. Universe, he believes that Jainism believes that universe is eternal. Eternal means it has no beginning or end. And that's why when it has no beginning or end, so that it must be run by a natural law or cosmic law, we can say. Further, they say that God is only a higher being. God is only a higher being who has attained the higher and superior quality of human being. That's why he is called God. And there's no concept of God. And on this point, Jainism also condemned, and they were against that point that they rejected. Jainism rejected the Vedas and their rituals. Why? When they are rejecting the presence of God, and Vedas were the personification of gods, and that's why we can see that they are rejecting the concept of God and Vedas, and UPSC can ask this question that they are rejecting or not. Fine. So Jainism does not believe in God as a creator, survivor, or destroyer in the universe, because universe is eternal and it goes by the cosmic law or nature's law, natural law. Fine. So with regard to the next statement, as both A and B are correct, the C1, Jainism does not condemn the Varna system while Buddhism does. Yes, it's true. Why? Because in Jainism, they didn't condemn the Varna system, because they say that the birth or death is due to the past karma or accumulated karma of an individual. Fine. And these are the if a person is born in a high or in lower varna, is in consequence of the sins or the virtues acquired by him in the previous births. Fine. So now let's look at the next statement. As C is correct, D1. Now D is incorrect. Why is incorrect? Because not Swetambaras. The Digambaras believe it was Digambars who believe that women cannot attain salvation. Fine. Now, why they cannot attain salvation? Because according to them, women could not absorb the woe of non-possession. They could not, as they could not attain the woe of non-possession very strictly manner. So that's why women are not qualified to attain the salvation. But Svetambara said that they can attain the salvation and they are equally qualified. Fine. So that makes statement D incorrect. So friends, do remember to note all these facts. Fine. So next, moving on to next question. The question is based on some recent recovery at a cave at Tamsuli. 2 weeks back, there was a recent discovery of a cave at Tamsuli. The region is Goa, and this have some historical evidences with regard to it. Let's see the options and the statements here. Historical evidences suggest that it's a Buddhist cave used for housing monks. Seems correct. According to the local belief, a cave was known as Vandevi. Fine. The cave is on the banks of river Mandovi. So friends, these all statements are correct. Why? Because historical evidence suggests that this cave was a Buddhist cave and it houses the monks. As you know, Buddhist has viharas and chaityas, and this cave was mainly built for the housing of the monks. And you can see this is the cave. It has a rectangular entry or a square entry into the cave, and it houses the monks. And further, according to local belief, this is known as One Devi. As you know, this is in the one, and the concept of sacred groups is modern. But during previous times, also in the past, the ones and the forest were regarded as the god and goddesses. And in this context, the One Devi is known by the local belief that is a cave was known as a One Devi in the Tamsuli. So these both statements are correct in their entirety. The next statement is the cave is on the banks of river Mandovi. As I said earlier, this is the river Mandovi on which the cave is on the cave is on the banks of river Mandovi. In Goa, you will find two more very important rivers, Joari and Mandovi. UPSC can ask aligning these rivers with the aspect of question. That's why I have taken this third statement, and this all the statement are correct, and that makes our answer 1, 2, and 3. Please note regarding these two important information. The river Mandovi is this cave is on river Mandovi, and Juari is another river of Goa. Fine, and it flows to what? Arabian Sea. So let's come to the next question. The next question is about some saying. Prince among the political section of IPC to suppress the liberty of citizen has been called by Gandhiji for which of the following? Friends, as you know, UPSC has been time and again with asking some statements which have been given by Gandhi, Nehru, Tagore, Patel, Subhash Bose, etc. So this kind of question came into prominence, and due to the recent context which has been provided, this makes this question very relevant from UPSC point of view. Now, this prince among the political section of IPC to suppress liberty of citizen has been called by Gandhiji for sedition law. As you know, section 124 of IPC is related with the sedition law, and this sedition has been in news constantly. So a historical perspective, linkage with the historical perspective can be asked. So I have taken this question, sedition law, and let's move on to the next question here. The next question is about some pillars which have been recently been found and restored. So we have to look at the statements with regard to Amin pillars. They were a part of Surajkund temple in Amin village. These Amin pillars are part of the Surajkund temple in Amin village, and they are the red sandstone pillars dated to the Sunga period of 6th century BC. Now friends, with regard to two statements, first I would like to discuss the first statement, that these Amin pillars is in news because recently they were smuggled to London, and it has been recently been returned and found its home in the National Museum. Fine. So this Amin pillars is a is also very important from the point of view in the Amin village, as the local folklore goes that this Amin village and the site was the site of Chakravyu during the epic battle of Mahabharata, where Abhimanyu, the son of Arjun, was killed. And this well-preserved sandstone, red sandstone, is from the Sunga period, during 2nd century BC. Why I have said this 6th century BC? Because UPSC at times interchange the dates or play with the dates or the eras, and that's make, because you have to read very carefully about the periods and their eras and find some logical conclusion. Like in Sunga period, if there is Sunga period, then Sunga is the post Maurya, and in that period you cannot have 6th century BC, and that's why the 2nd century BC is the correct answer. So the correct answer is only one, as a statement only one is correct. Now with regard to this sandstone Amin pillars, which is in sandstone, we can see some more information. Now this is the pillars which has been depicted here for you, and in this pillar you can see that there is a Yaksh and Yakshini. There is a Yaksha and Yakshini or Yakshini, okay, and these are in the Mithuna position. Sex symbolism position, and which this figure depicts and consider very auspicious and symbolizes the fertility and abundance or prosperity, you can say. So these are considered as very auspicious, and as they are found in the Mithuna pose, and they are the red sandstone. Fine, and the form is Yaksha and Yakshini, and these are called for the prosperity and symbolism of abundance. Fine, so our answer here is 1A only. Move to the next question. The next question is about which of the following is correct. Is about some temple. You can see Dravidian here. You can see Kandiriya Mahadev, and the architecture, so it must be about some architecture. Fine. So let's see the statement. Devayatanam has been launched by ASI to restore the old temples of India. Second statement, the Kandariya Mahadev temple is an excellent example of Dravidian form of temple architecture. Question mark. Chaltris forms one of the principal and constant feature of Dravidian style of architecture. Fine. And we have to consider which of the following is a correct. So friends, with regard to the first statements, this Devayatanam is not a program launched by to restore temples of India, but it is in programs, and it was mainly a conference. It was a conference to, with an aim to deliberate, on what are the philosophical, religious, socio-cultural, etc. Philosophical, religious, social, cultural, economic, technical, and scientific art and architecture and aspects of those temple buildings. So they are looking into the different aspects of temples and its ideas, and further what led to their evolution, how they evolved and developed. So this Devayatanam is not a program to restore old temples, but they are a part of conference launched by ASI to deliberate upon the ideas behind temple building and the various form of architecture, their evolution and development. Fine. So first statement is not correct here. Why? Because not so the next statement, Kandariya Mahadev temple is an excellent example of the Dravidian form of architecture. No, it's not true. Fine. As Kandariya Mahadev is not the example of Dravidian, it's a mixed Visara, and we can see here the next statement, Chautris. As you know, Kandariya Mahadev is in MP, so it cannot be Dravidian. You can also find some logic behind that. Fine. The Nagara, it's a kind of Nagara style of temple, and with regard to the third statement, Chaltris forms one of the principal and constant feature of Dravidian style of temple architecture. Yes, this is true. The statement third is true here, and we can find the option C here is correct. Fine. Now, friends, let's talk about something about the Nagara style of the very briefly. The Nagara style of the temple architecture. Nagara is also called the northern style, and Nagara has two peculiar features, as you can see here. Fine, there is also a Nagara style. So Nagara has two peculiar features, and among them is the presence of several graduated projections. Graduated projections are here, and Ratakaras in the center of all sides. Fine. Of the square temple. The second feature includes the design of the spire or the sikhara. You can see here the design of the spire or the sikhara that follow the principle of concentric squares, and circles gradually tapered in a convex curve while stretching upwards. Fine. So you can find these in the peculiar style of Nagara architecture. Fine, and it's very common in the North India to build the temples on a stone platform. Fine. It's very common in India to build this temple on a stone platform and the steps leading to it. Besides Kandariya Mahadev, there is also very important examples of Nagara temple are like, for example, the Sun Temple at Konark and Modhera, Gujarat, and there is an Ocean Temple in Gujarat also. Now, with regard to the third statement, Chautris or the pillared halls, you can say here the Dravidians at the pillars hall here. Chautris or the pillared halls have been employed for different purposes, and it forms one of the principal and constant feature of this style. Fine, as you can find these Chautris in every Dravidian style of architecture of temple buildings. And with regard to the next of the important features, the square shaped temple called Vimana has one or more storied pyramidal roofs, while its cell houses the image and emblem of the god. Fine. Now, with regard to the another one is the mandapas. Mandapas, you know, a kind of mandaps here, are the mandapas or porches in such a way that these precede the cover that doors lead to the cells. Fine. That these precede the cover, the door that lead to the cell, and we can also find the gopurams or the gateways in an elaborated manner. Fine. They are the gate pyramids enclose the temple, and this form an important part of the Dravidian architecture. Is that clear? And then friend, next we can see is the third type of Visara or the mixed kind of temple architecture. It involves both a stone pillars, kind of Sikhara, Vimana, some elaborated Gopurams, Chaltris are also here. So this makes our statement 3 only correct. As please note that this Chaltri can be asked as it is a very constant feature, and these are all called pillared halls. You can find every Dravidian style of temple architecture. So let's friend move on to the next question. The next question is about we have to consider the following statements regarding goat-headed Yogini. Friends, Yogini, as you can see, depicts some kind of goddess, or in Tantrism, we see the form of Yogini who has attained the salvation, and yoga has some tantric powers, supernatural powers, have some supernatural tantric power. And this is a very recent news, 2 to 3 weeks back, and this has been found. And with regard to it, we have to consider the following statement. It's a 10th century stone idol belonging to a group of stone deities carved in sandstone. The Yoginis are a group of powerful female divinities with tantric mode of worship, as said, and the both statements are here will be correct, because both are very correct in their nature. It's a 10th century. You can see the Yogini. This is the goat-headed Yogini. Beside goat-headed Yogini, we also find buffalo-headed Yogini. Fine. Virshana Yogini say, and these temples have been news because recently these were returned by London. These were returned by the High Commission in the High Commission of India in London, and these were the temples which were initially illegally removed from Uttar Pradesh from a temple in Lokhari, and this goat-headed Yogini belong to that stone deities carved in the sandstone installed in the Lokhari temple. So from the Lokhari temple it has been stolen, and this temple is in Lokhari, this sandstone is in Lokhari. And we can see that Yoginis are a group of powerful female divinities, which I have said earlier. Often they are taken as a group 32, 64, 96 kind of thing, and they are the mode of the tantric worship and are believed to possess the infinite power. So during the 10th century, as friends, there was a rise in this tantrism. With regard to tantrism, we also saw in the last class that there was a Tara Devi which was worshipped in Buddhism. Fine. And in Buddhism, she is called from the Vajrayan Sakha, as we have 3 yans or the wheels in Buddhism, and these wheels are Mahayan, Hinayan, and next in Vajrayan. Fine. So the Tantrism form of worship initiated or evolved during the 9th, 10th century AD, most of the things, and thus we are finding we find some kind of Yogini and other form of Tantrism during that era. And in this context, as it has been recently returned, so this forms an important part of our question answer series. Next question, very important from the point of view of Mughals, because they have been in news either by way of their extraneous significance, or they have been recently deleted. There's some chapters on Mughals has been recently deleted, and that's why they form one of the important part for us to know. Fine. With regard to the Mughals, during statement are correct during Mughals. Fine, their period. The Khud Kast were the peasants who owned the land they tilled. The second is the Mughals introduced arcs and domes in their architecture. Friends, as you know, Mughals didn't introduce the arcs and domes, and they were introduced during the Turkish rule or the Sultanate. Fine. What Mughals did were the gardens, elaborated gardens, Mughal garden, Shalimar garden, the fountains everywhere. Fine. So they didn't introduce the arcs and domes. Arcs and domes you can find in every Sultanate architecture. So that's why statement 2 is incorrect here. And the first statement, the Khudkhast were the peasants who own land they tilled. Yes, it's very true statement. Why? Because Khudkhast denote the peasants who till their own land, and not as a tenant or as a subgroup of peasants known as Kamins. Kamins were the untouchables during the Mughal areas, during the region of Mughal. And beside Khudkhast, there will also we find a term called Mujairins, and these were the tenants. Just for your information, these were tenants during the Mughal period and the village life, and they were the who paid the land revenue at higher rates. Khudkast also paid revenue, but they paid revenue as a higher rates, land revenue at higher rates, and that's why they were called Muzahirins. And Khudkast were the peasant who owned the land they tilted. Fine. So you can see these are the arcs and domes during the medieval era architecture employed by the Sultanate. Fine. Is it clear? So next, move on to the next question here. During the consider the following statement with regard to paintings during Mughal. Friends, again the question on paintings of Mughals do came very prominently in the UPSC Prelims examination. That makes very important to know. These emerged, the origin we are talking about, these emerged from the Persian art of miniature paintings with influences from other native religions. Fine. We'll see the what of them are correct, but first look at the all statement. Hamsa Nizami was painted by Mir Sayyid Ali and Abdul Samad or Abdul Samad. The next statement is the major project commissioned by Akbar was Hamzanama. This also came in UPSC. So with regard to all the three statement, all three are correct. Fine. Our answer would be D, 1, 2 and 3. Now we have to see the why these are correct. Now these emerge from the Persian art. It has a Persian influence because when Babur came, he took the influence of paintings, and when Humayun came to India, he took Mir Sayyid Ali and Abbad Samad with him, and they created this kind of miniatures painting. And beside the Persian influence, the original Persian influence, we also find influence from the other religions like Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and Zoroastrianism. So these kind of and further the Christianism also. During the Akbar, we find the influence of Christianity, Baptist kind of religious significance in the paintings of Mughals. Fine. So let's look at the explanations here. The first is while we are talking about the Mughal paintings, this is Jahangir with a hollow. This is the Hamjanama. This is Khamsa of Nizami. Fine, not Hamjanama. And with regard to the statement and the analysis, first we have to see that how they were made. The use of natural colors. This is very important to know. Natural colors were used by mixing different ones and mixing the pigments. Fine. Why natural colors were used? They give a very aesthetic look to the paintings. Other than that, they used the gold and silver powders or mixes, fine, to sprinkle to add the excavanges to the Mughal paintings. As you can see, gold and silver here were used very extensively to give it a very aesthetic look. And Jahangir, you can see in the both the pictures here. Further, we can see that when during the time of Humayun, we find the evidences of a painting workshop called Nigar Khana. Nigar Khana was the painting workshop during the time of Humayun. Fine. And with regard to the next find, we can see Akbar here. Akbar was an other prominent ruler of Mughal Empire who has a very, in his credit, the extensive work was done in his Karkhana by in terms of miniature paintings. And during Akbar, Abu Fazl, the court historian, wrote about his passion for the arts. Further, during his time, a great emphasis was laid on the illustration of manuscripts. So manuscripts were illustrated during the time of Akbar through the miniatures paintings also. And artists like Govardhan and Miskin were celebrated for their visual court scenes. Court scenes were very visually presented by the artists known as Govardhan and Miskin, and they have presented the court scene of Akbar. Further we find Akbarnama. Fine. This Akbarnama is a detailed account of Akbar's political and personal life, and this also involves the illustration here. So that's why we are talking about it. Fine. With regard to other important aspect is the paintings of Madonna and Child. It was something around 1580, and this depicts the early work of Mughal school of miniatures paintings, and this brings the Byzantine art, the European classical and Renaissance to the Mughal courts. Fine. So we can find such kind of paintings during the Mughal times. Now, with regard to next emperor, we can see the Jahangir. During the time of Jahangir, the Mughal painting achieved the naturalism, the nature scene. Naturalism was achieved, as you can see. Trees are there, mud, and the different kind of scene like rivers in the background were shown. So it achieved the during the time of Jahangir naturalism, and there was scientific accuracy. Why scientific was used? To present the accurate manner. We can see the every face and the details can be visible. The mongoloid features are visible here. The chhatris are visible here. So, and even the condition of people that Jahangir is talking with the saint or people were very visible in a scientific details have been provided through these paintings. Fine. So it achieved the very highest degree of naturalism and scientific painting. Further, we can see during the Jahangir in Darbar, the Jahangir Darbar has been sold by the Abu Hassan, and further we can see the Jahangir dream, which was the dream of Jahangir. The Jahangir dream was painted by Abul Hassan. He was one of the son of Jahangir, and he painted the painting of Jahangir's dream. And the Patshanama is the Chronicle of Kings, which also is a very extraordinary painted manuscript, illustrated manuscript in the form of miniature paintings. And also the miniature painting has some influences of Rajputs paintings also. It influences the other parts of Garhwal paintings. So we can see, and one more thing important we have to understand, that as per the popular belief, during the time of Aurangzeb, the paintings were not shut down immediately, and they continued. Fine. So during the time of Aurangzeb, UPSC can link a question that during the time of Aurangzeb, the paintings were shut down because there is a popular belief about Aurangzeb. He was a very aesthetic person and very strict in the manners of any kind of enjoyment or paintings. So no, this is incorrect. They continued till the time of Aurangzeb, and in later Mughals, as there were political fragmentations, no such extraordinary paintings have been in news. Fine. So we have seen the information that the Mughal paintings had a Persian influence, and the miniature painting with influences from other religions, and the Khamsa of Nizami painted by Mir Sayyid Ali, and Hamza Nama is a project. As you know, the question was also asked about it, and Hamza Nama was instrumental because Humayun has started this, and this was continued by his son Akbar the Great. Fine, as been called. But the chapters on NCRTs in NCRT has been deleted, and that makes our context very clear that we have to read something about Mughals and their paintings, and that takes us to the end of the session. Thank you so much. Best of luck.